Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And I am here with Scott Brockway. Hello there, Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to talk about each and every pedal behind Scott during the course of our interview today in great detail. We'll open them up. We'll look at all the circuits.
Oh boy, we're going to be here all month.
Scott, let's see who we've got with us. How about that? Okay. So in our chat, we've got Herb of Fireside Studios wishing everybody a happy Father's Day. And he is followed by Cushman NYC. Our buddy Zach Thong has made his way in. And let's see, Wayne McConnell. He's got his coffee and weed ready. He's all ready to go. Big Wave Dave has made his appearance. Good morning to you, sir. Sean Hockey is here. Sean, I'm looking forward to seeing this band play. We got to start getting those streams going, buddy. Come on, keep in mind. And this guy, Scott Brockway's here.
Yeah.
You heard of this guy? No,
I don't know.
And we got McCallum Music saying, hey now. Hey, that's mine. Hey now. That's me. Wait,
Hey
what
now.
are you doing? We got Martian Murray in the chat here. Hello, Martian Murray. And our buddy Eddie Fay has made his way in. And Steve Rezer is with us. Hello there, Steve. How you doing, bud? And I think I've already caught Wayne, but in case I missed him before, Wayne McConnell, good morning to you, sir. Welcome in. We've got Blackjack Guitar with us.
Hey, buddy.
Saying hello to both of us. Love this guy. And we got Brother William DeSilvia. How you doing, Brother William? And that catches us up with the chat there.
Right on.
Awesome. All right, Scott. So you know where we're going.
Yeesh.
You know what we're up to here. We're starting with the question. Okay.
Yes.
So what begins your guitar journey? What gets you into guitar and pedals and all these other things?
Oh, what gets me into guitar? Well, my earliest memories are Happy Days and hearing Rock Around the Clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved that song when I was a kid. And then I just kind of didn't really pay much attention to music until I was about 12.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe 11, because my dad was seeing somebody else, and her kids were big into like AC/DC, and
Mm-hmm.
they had MTV in their house and stuff already. And I saw the Ozzy Osbourne live with Brad Gillis, and that did it. I was like, okay. I became way aware of music. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan Hall.
Brother Ryan. Yeah, that was my first, like, okay, I had to start buying records. Like, after that, it was like, so, yeah.
Yeah, there comes that point where you're listening to all the stuff that your parents and your family's listening to, and then something happens. And just like where they brought you into AC/DC. My cousin showed up one summer with a Pink Floyd album. When she showed up at the wall, it completely changed everything.
Yeah. Well, see, me and my mom already liked Pink Floyd and Fleetwood Mac and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but like I wasn't interested in hardcore into it yet until I saw that. And then, yeah, I was like, what is that? I like that. That's mine. Yeah.
So we've had Hit Metalworks and Oh You Wait 1-2 have both joined us. Welcome in, gents.
What's up?
So how does that lead to you? Okay, so that's you getting into the music, right?
Yeah.
And so how does that lead to the instrument? How do you get there?
I just went crazy going to the record store. And we had a used record store and a new record store. We had a used one called Second Time Around, and we had a new one called Penny Lane. And I found so many albums there. I was like buying Iron Maiden and AC/DC and Kiss and Cheap Trick and, you know, Ozzy and I didn't, that was before like I decided things were that I didn't want to listen to certain things and stuff. You know, I was just buying everything. I didn't care what. And
Yeah, yeah. At first, you kind of do that, right? You buy everything, and you kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like, and
I liked everything. That
yeah.
was and I liked all them. And I remember when Pyromania came out, and I bought that, and it was just amazing. And I, had 1984 and Metal
Mhm.
Health and the Holy Diver, and like these are monumental albums in my growing up with music.
Mhm.
And that quickly led to me wanting a bass for some reason. I wanted a bass, like I was going to be bass player. And I think that was mostly because of the Ozzy stuff. I really liked Bob Daisley, and I still do.
Mhm.
So he's like my favorite bass player. And well, Randy Rhoads is my favorite guitar player, of course. He's the GOAT for
Right.
me. Love Ed, but Randy's my GOAT. So my mom had an opportunity to buy a Fender Precision bass from someone, but for some reason that fell through and I wasn't able to get it. So, and then we moved from Seattle to Everett, which is about 35 miles north of Seattle, and I didn't have a guitar for a couple of years yet. My mom knew I wanted one really bad because I had a stick, and I like drew frets on it and cut out a cardboard body. Yeah, it is forever known as the stick. I had a stick because I just wanted it so bad.
Okay. So that does bring up a story. Do you want to hear a weird guitar story
Sure.
from my childhood? We all decided that we wanted to play guitar, but the money wasn't there for one, right? And so my younger two brothers are like creative geniuses. And so they got the idea that we're going to make acoustic guitars out of cardboard. And we did.
Right on.
And it was hilarious. It was the best like 3 days ever because you took us a day to get the materials together and then to build them, and then they only last so long. But it was a lot of fun, and it was something that I never would have thought of doing. And but we made these 3 acoustic guitars out of cardboard, and just had a great time playing the rubber bands.
Awesome.
I'm sure it sounded awful.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're like young and a kid, you're just like, I want this and I'm gonna make it happen. I don't, So that's what I did too. It was just like I wanted a guitar so bad. And then eventually my mom brought me home one from actually the first one I had a friend of mine that was like, "Oh, I have a guitar." And I'm like, he wanted to trade me my slot cars for it. So I didn't know that it was a piece of junk.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it's perfect. I was expecting that. Yeah, I didn't know it was a piece of junk. It was like a Univox or something. The headstock had been broke off and glued on. And my mom was so mad that I had traded all my slot cars and stuff for this piece of junk. So my uncle got me a guitar, and it was a classical. And I was like, I don't want a classical guitar. Well, if you play that, we'll buy you an electric later. I don't want an electric guitar. I don't want to play a classical guitar, but I hadn't heard really cool stuff on classical yet. So,
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Later, I heard John McLaughlin and stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool.
We welcome in a couple people here. Doug Strong, wishing everybody a happy Father's Day. Want to say hello to Doug. Gear Junkie 35. Appreciate you coming in. We got our buddy BC Rich 581. And Brother Ben Coombs has made an appearance.
Brother Ben.
Yeah.
Right on.
So, all right. So we get the acoustic, right?
Yeah.
And where do you go from there?
That area is kind of hazy.
It's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy. I wasn't doing drugs or anything yet. I was just kind of, in 6th grade, and I was still interested in running around the woods with my best friend playing Army Men. So, like you do when you're in 6th grade. So, and then I got interested in girls, and that like became a thing. Yeah, Tycho, Aurora, yeah, AFX. all that TCR. Yeah, I had a big collection. I really regret it now. You know, at some point we went downtown Everett, and my future job. We went into the music store down there called Hotlix, Hotlix, which I worked at later for almost 20 years. I bought my first guitar was a red sparkle. My first actual guitar was a red sparkle Arbor Explorer, and I just loved it, and it was terrible, and it's squealed, and yeah, but it was, my first real guitar, and I think I had a little Yamaha JX50. They were actually good little amps. I if I found another one, I would buy it because it actually sounded pretty damn good. There a lot of studio guys use them. But yeah, and that was like my first like actual electric guitar, and it didn't last very long. So, and then I had like some other crappy Arbors and Applause and stuff in between until I got my Kramer, which I still have. And that's been my number one guitar for, 30 years.
So what is it about the Kramer that makes it your number one?
Just the way it sounds. And I put so many hours into it that I wore the finish off the neck pretty much. Like, yeah, I played that guitar so much, and it doesn't sound like my other guitars. Like, I have the Washburn and the Epiphone, and I've had other electric guitars. I've had a Dean, and what else have I had? I've had some Charvel Model 6s, I think. Had 2 of those. I've had another Washburn A10, another A20 that was a Sunburst. And I had a Yamaha SBG 200, I think, not a 2000, a 200, which is the Carlos Santana kind of
inspired one.
Yeah, I really liked that guitar. I regretted having to sell it, and I had an RR5 that I loved that a friend of mine gave me, but I ended up having to sell it in order to pay rent so I wouldn't be homeless. And
that's important, not to be homeless.
For sure. Yeah. I was just like, I didn't want to be homeless. I love the guitar, and it's like, you got to make decisions, and it was either that or the Kramer. Well, I had already sold the Yamaha before that, so
yeah.
And so I would like to find another one that I like. Someone. There's an Ingve Strat up the street that I would love, but I don't have $1,800 to drop. It's a pretty good deal, It's like they're 24 new. So yeah, I would like that. I played it. It sounds great. I usually don't like Strats.
So what is it in a guitar that you look for then?
The first thing I do is strum it, and if it's not loud, I pass it. There's just I listen to it acoustically first. It's got to sound good,
It's got to kind of ring out and resonate.
Yeah, it's got to have sustain, and it's got to have something that's, I don't know. The Kramer was weird. I was just drawn to it at the store. I went to I want that one. So I was just drawn to that guitar. Can I play that one? Can I play that one? And that ended up being the one. So yeah, most of the guitars that the Epiphone Explorer is different because that's something I bought off Sweetwater just because I'm a Brandon Smalls fan, and it was an Explorer, and I've been wanting another Explorer because that was my first guitar because I love Explorers. And that guitar sounds pretty good, although I keep trying to. It doesn't sound as good as my Kramer. There's just something about it that's different in it.
So our buddy Sean Hockey's asking if you like scalp frets.
Yeah, yes I do. I have a really light touch, so they don't bother me at all. I actually like that because I can get into the string to bend. And Yeah. That's why I like
Guitar Man 45 is the thing I regretted selling was my 71 CUDA for gear. I should have sold something else.
Yeah, that could, boy, yeah, that's worth a penny now. A Bitcoin.
It Hobo Roadie adds in, if it was it was the wife who didn't want to be homeless, I wouldn't have to ever thought I'd sell my Rickenbacker.
Right. Oh man, I would love a 4001. I played bass in a band for a while too, in a hardcore punk band.
Mm-hmm. And Gear Junkie 35 adds in, he learned how to play on a 1896 Kramer Focus. I believe he's looking at a 1996 Kramer Focus 3000 with all the splitter switches and a Floyd.
Hell of a guitar.
Hell of a guitar.
Well, that's exactly what I have is an 86, 87 Focus 3000 made by ESP. They were made in the ESP factory back then. So that's why the neck is quarter sawn. Yeah,
everybody's having fun with that one. So you get the Kramer, and so how do you go about learning the guitar? What was your way?
I just started listening to records, and I would sit and try to figure it out. Once I figured out how to tune the guitar, someone showed me how to tune it. I don't remember who. I remember how. Every acid dealer gets busted eventually. That's how I learned how to tune the guitar. And I had a little. I think I had a banana tuner. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would just sit and I think I started with like AC/DC and stuff. And I started buying magazines. So like one of the first ones I can remember having was Guitar for the Practicing Musician with Iron Maiden on the cover. It was blue. I think it was 86 or 7. Yeah. I remember that particular issue and learning. I think it was The Number of the Beast was on that one. Mm-hmm. So that was like one of the first things that I attempted to learn. I couldn't really play it, but I tried, and then I got some friends of mine in the neighborhood were older, and he had bought Metallica, Kill 'Em All, and SOD's first record, and that's Stormtroopers of Death, not System of a Down, and Slayer. They're, I think, Rain and Blood. And I heard Metallica, and I was like, I got to go buy that record. And the SOD record, I went and bought that too. So, like, the first stuff that I have conscious remembering, figuring out was sitting in my room all weekend, figuring out every song on Kill 'Em All. Because, like, I had already learned, like, 12-bar blues and, like, a Judas Priest song. I think I can remember the first 5 songs I learned. I learned Pipeline. I learned a 12-bar blues. I learned Get Your Motor Running. What the heck is that song? Born to Be Wild.
Born to Be Wild, yeah.
And I can hear it in my head. I can't remember the name of it. It's the ADHD thing. Excuse me. It's the Fleetwood Mac song that they covered. Whatever, it's Green Manalishi. That was okay. So those are like my first songs I learned. There was a couple more, and I can't remember the names right now. Yeah, Stormtroopers of Death. That's like still one of my favorite, best heavy guitar tone ever. Scott Ian, huge Anthrax fan. Love Anthrax. I got into that a little bit later, but yeah, I definitely remember learning all of Kill 'Em All. I couldn't learn the solos, but I learned all the songs.
I don't know. I just don't have the ear to do that. I don't.
Yeah. I started taking lessons after that, and my guitar teacher was like, "Wow, you've got an ear, dude," because I was like pretty accurate with a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started getting into like learning Crazy Train and all the harder things.
Right.
I could never get shred the Ingve stuff or anything as much as I wanted to, but
well,
it's just.
But if you could put a record on and figure it out, I mean that's my hat's off to you because it's not something that is in my wheelhouse. Ryan Hall puts a message in. Danon is watching and he's got some YouTube issues, so he's only able to watch. So Danon, if you can hear us, welcome in. Appreciate you, my friend. But yeah, I don't know how people do that. I just don't have the ear for it, And I can, and when I'm learning a song from another way, where from watching someone play it or from watching a video or cases, I can hear the differences there.
Mm-hmm.
But just to sit there, put something on and pick it up, no, forget it. It's not happening. So.
Well, it's not an instant thing, it's a lot of rewinding. But that's how a lot of guys learned back, and that was how you learned back in the day.
Right.
You just figured stuff out. It was like it teaches you how to be kind of a musician somewhat, because you gotta follow your ear. You gotta listen. That's the most important thing, is to listen. Yeah. So especially to yourself. And a lot of people just don't. You should record yourself and listen back and be critical of yourself, but not too critical. You gotta have fun. So say, I could work on that. So that's what I still do that. So
yeah. And Eddie Fay, he's kind of banging. He says it's the combination of having the ear for the song, reading the tabs and guitar, and for the practice position, or from friends.
Yeah,
and some of it is, I don't know. I've got patience for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But if I can't figure something out, I get frustrated.
Right. I get information overload because I'm autistic, so it's like I can only absorb so much at one time, and then my brain just goes, no more, stop, and I'll just kind of like blank out. It's like I can't absorb anymore. So, but with guitar, I don't know. I just was able to get past that and just obsess over it, hyper focus on it. And I would play until my fingers bled. And like literally I would play until I sliced my fingers open.
Really?
So, yeah. I just loved it so much. I wish I still could, but now it gives me tendonitis. So, even with good technique, you can still overplay.
So how long would you say it took you to kind of get guitar down to where you felt comfortable playing in public, I suppose?
About a year. Yeah. When I got into my first band.
All right. So well, tell us. Okay, we're talking bands now. All right. Let's tell us about that experience a little bit.
That's my ear got me into that band because their guitar player was moving, and we were in high school together, and they needed a guitar player, and I was like, oh, well, can I get a copy of the tape? And I took their tape home, and I figured out their set of 6 songs in a weekend. And then they like gave me a chance to come down to band practice, and they were just super impressed that I already pretty much knew all the songs, except for, a couple things that I got wrong, because it was hard to hear it on the tape. It wasn't the best recording in the world. So, yeah. And I scored a gig, I joined the band as a rhythm guitar player. And that was fun. We played our first show at the Ballard Firehouse in Seattle with Requiem and Forced Entry.
Nice.
Yeah. And I was friends with all those guys, and I still am. So
how long was that band together? How long did y'all play?
That was about a year, until the bass player moved away, and the band just kind of fell apart after that. I didn't really get along with the drummer because he like wasn't very good. So I kind of partially broke up the band because I was just like, man, we need a better drummer if we're gonna go anywhere with this, you know. But he was the singer's brother, and you know how that's, you know. So yeah, when I was young and didn't
This is
know
behind the music part of the interview.
yeah, I didn't know the politics and stuff yet. So I mean, you know, I was 16. What does a 16-year-old know? Yeah.
There you go. All right, so we're okay. So where on that journey do we go from there? So we've played in the band. Where do you know that band kind of comes apart? What happens next?
I get the job at the music store, and that becomes my life. And I was already like into the amps and pedals in high school, and I walked into the store, and they were trying to fix something, and I was like, oh, well, I can help you fix that. And I fixed it for him right there on the spot. And he's like, hey, do you want a job?
Mm-hmm.
You know how those things happen, just right, it's right time. And I was like, yeah, I want a job. And so I had a job, and I started, you know, fixing amps and keyboards, and because I just had a knack for it. And then I learned how to fix guitars while I was there and do setups and string 1,000 guitars, and oh boy, everything from Les Pauls to Hondos, and oh boy, man, boy, it's fun trying to get some of them cheap guitars to actually play. Let me tell you, I learned a lot. You know, and half of them needed rewiring, and people had been in them, and oh man, it was just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. Learn how to do the stuff that needed to be done. Make a lot of mistakes, thankfully, on the cheap guitars. And oops, I kind of burned that knob with the soldering iron. Oops, you know.
It happens.
Yeah. Stripped out a saddle. Oh, I'm in trouble for that, you know. Dude, what are you doing? I don't know. I still remember my boss. You know, dude, what are you doing? But hey, you had to learn. You know,
you had to learn, and they hired you.
That's it's not like you could go to school for it. You know, it's like there was like some kind of luthier school I remember, and I was just like, I got the patience for that. You know, I picked it up. I can do it now, no problem. I can rewire guitars all day. Yeah, I need to.
So, in all this time working at the guitar store, fixing other equipment, are you still playing? What's kind of going on in background there?
Most during that time, it was just kind of like I was trying to find bands, and I couldn't find a band. And I had friends that I jammed with here and there, and I had a buddy that was kind of my weed dealer, and we used to jam, and he'd have me come over to his house, and we'd just play guitar for hours on end. And then I had another buddy who was kind of another one of my weed dealers, and I'd go over to his house, and we'd jam. And it was
I see a theme developing here.
Yeah. I kind of got too heavy into smoking pot instead of paying attention to what I was doing, and that kind of, you know, that's where that went. I did have a couple of small bands up until around 2000, and that's when I started playing bass in Schick Shadle. And we recorded an EP, and we stayed together for about 2 years.
Oh wow!
And did gigs all over the Northwest and Whidbey Island and Seattle. And
so Eddie Faye asks, did you get that knack for tinkering and problem solving from trying to change gearing on your Tyco slot cars to go faster?
You know, actually, I did hot rod my slot cars. I was pretty into that. I was into like balancing the armatures and stuff like that. I learned I learned that from the Bon Marché. They had a pretty big hobby department.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys there was really into slot cars and showed me stuff, and I'd go there and hang out when I was, 8 or 9 or whatever. So, yeah, but no, I got it from Legos. I was just way into Legos. I was building the expert builder sets when I was like 8, the big car and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just into that. I don't know. I was always into that stuff. I took my dad's stereo apart or something when I was like 4 or 5. He got really mad. I put it back together and it worked. So
yeah, I did some taking apart of things, and
yeah,
some successful, some not. And
I was just fascinated with stuff, and I was really into my bikes when I was a teenager.
mm-hmm.
So I learned on a Schwinn, like everybody else, replacing the bearings, packing bearings, taking the bikes apart,
Mm-hmm.
putting them back together, swapping parts, buying chains and different sprockets and different cranks. And eventually I got into semi other stuff, and I had a GT Pro Performer, and it was all decked out with dyno parts and custom brakes and mushroom grips. And yeah, I was just into techie stuff. I always was. Computer programming, I still do that. So that's a hobby.
So how do we get to the menagerie of pedals behind you?
I started collecting pedals.
Mm.
That was like shortly after getting my Kramer, I got a Distortion Plus. MXR Distortion Plus, which I wish I still had that first pedal, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just fell in love with pedals for some reason, which was weird back then because people didn't really use them that much. Like pro guys did, they had their,
right.
But it was just, wah pedal, echo plex, tube screamer type of thing, or 10 band EQ, once in a while an octave pedal. And I was just like, I went crazy on it. I would go down to Al's Guitarville, and they had so many pedals they had hundreds of pedals. And I was into MXR pedals because of Randy Rhoads. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing I started collecting was MXR pedals. And I had every single one almost, except for a couple of the rarer ones.
So that connection, that initial connection with the pedals, would you say it was because of the guitarists you were following, what they were using, or was it just you were just enamored with them?
I was just enamored with sounds. I really loved Jimi Hendrix, and I wanted to be able to get that Woodstock sound, and I didn't know what it was, and nobody I was really hanging around with was old enough to know what it was, or else I would have had a Univibe back then, I'm sure. And I wish I could buy one now. They're really expensive. So I just loved sound. I liked making noise with pedals, and I would experiment with them. And because there was no rules to me. It's not like these, you got to have your overdrive here and your fuzz here and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whatever sounds cool. I'm still like that. I wonder what happened. Yeah, I'm like a kid. I wonder what would happen if
I do this.
Yeah, it's like that's where creativity comes from for me. So it's like, I'm going to put my phaser first before my distortion, and other people don't like that. But I'm like, well, Eddie Van Halen did it, so why can't I? I like to run things in front of the amp and some things after the amp, and I don't put things in the loop except for reverb and delay, but I want an Echoplex out in front. That's just how they sound good to me, because that's how I did it. And I found my sounds that I liked.
So was that your kind of process? You get a pedal and just try it in different positions to see what it did in different places, in the signal chain, and
how it interacted with other pedals. And it was like, some stuff I ran in a modern order, you know, but one day I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if I stuck my compressor after my distortion pedal. So I tried it and I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting sound. That's different. It shaved off a lot of the high end, the gritty, annoying harshness. So I ended up doing some recordings with that with a guy that I knew that did industrial music. He would have me come over with my guitar and my pedals, and he would sample and use the samples to make music. No, you're not alone. Some people like that. I don't. It depends on the fuzz. Like big muff, sure. Fuzz face, That's gotta. It just doesn't work right.
Ben says the correct thing is to run a phaser before and after your gain.
I don't like the way it sounds after. I put a chorus pedal there.
In Gear Junkie says, yes, phaser and 3 phases is the appropriate answer.
Hey, I had a phase 45, a phase 100, and a phase 90 all on my chain at home. So 3 phasers is the correct answer. Now I've got 2 phase 90, a phase 100, and 2 small stones. So,
so what is the order of your pedal chain these days?
Oh, right now I'm not really using much, but in the Axe.io, I set up a small chain. So it's like I have a Dynacomp, and well, first is a Boss Octaver running into a phaser, and then the Dynacomp, and then an SD1 in front of a Marshall. That's what I'm running in the Axe.io. But I have the chain split into 3. So there's a Soldano and a Friedman in the side chains. And I just have a compressor and a gate in front of those.
You're getting all fancy then.
Yeah. Well, the amplitude is kind of, it sounds kind of distortion pedal-y to me. So I had to like mix amps in order to get sound. Yeah, an Octaver. I love octave up and down, but it's a Boss OC2 model, because I love me some Deep Purple. So I have some Behringer pedals there on the top up there. Yeah, they're noisy, and I wouldn't take them out on the road. But I like the Super Fuzz. It's a pretty good fuzz. It's not a Fox tone machine. It doesn't sound like a Fox tone machine. People say it's a Fox tone machine, but it doesn't sound like a Fox, because I've had Fox tone machines and I've worked on a few over the last couple of years. And it's like, no, it's its own thing.
So, okay. So how do we get to, so you're collecting all the pedals, right? And doing all the experimenting with them and figuring out what they all do and where you like to have them. When do you get to the point to where you begin working on them, and trading in them?
I've been working on them all along, because in high school I was into electronics, and I had books, and I had Craig Anderton's. I bought Craig Anderton's book when I was like 15. And I built a couple of the projects in there. First, I built the metronome first, because I needed a metronome. And then I built, I think, the fuzz, the tube sound fuzz. I remember building that. And then I built the phaser, but I could never get it to work. So that one was a failed project. Yeah, and then I built like the filter thing, and then I think I bought a preamp kit from somewhere, and I put that together. And I used to check all the electronics magazines at the newsstand, and occasionally Popular Electronics would have a fuzz pedal or a boost pedal or something, and I would buy it and build it. And I just had a couple of old pieces of stereo equipment that didn't work that I would get parts out of. And yeah, that's how that started. And eventually I started, my distortion plus broke.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured out what was wrong with it, and the op amp had died. So I went to Radio Shack and bought a 741 and put it in there, and it worked again. And then one of my teachers at school had a Clyde McCoy wah pedal that didn't work, and he just gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out that it had a dead transistor in it, so I went to Radio Shack and bought some transistors, and I fixed it, and it worked, and it was great. And I wish I would have never sold it. At one point, I had 3 Clyde McCoys, and now I kick myself in the ass because they're worth like $2,000 each. You know, stuff I got for free. How many pedals do I have? 213 presently, with no end in sight.
And Gear Junkie 35 is chiming in on that one too. He's got about 350 plus.
Gear Junkie has a big collection of gear.
You two have it bad. You two have it bad for sure.
Oh, yeah, the pedals. See, now if I had that kind of money, I would have 200 amplifiers. What's Radio Shack? Yeah, you remember Radio Shack? Used to buy tubes there even. For my aunt, I had a Bassman.
Yeah, go ahead and put your pedal counts down in the chat. Sure. Why not?
Ben's got at least 60.
Yeah.
I think he sold off a bunch of them now.
BC Rich, geez, I'd like to get down to around a dozen. I have 20.
I just can't. I sell some of them. If I really don't like it, I'll move it along.
I think I have 5.
Like I said, I'm into sounds, so it's like most of the stuff here is all overdrives. That's like every one of those pedals is overdrives until you get down here, and then it's like this is all the like K-Line and Joyo stuff. Because it was so cheap during the pandemic. And then you've got the Demon Effects stuff here. Up here is more the kind of the start of my vintage stuff. There's like 80s and 90s stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like Ibanez pedals and Boss pedals. And then up there is the Behringer stuff and like modern things. Like Way Huge and, you know, Zodic and stuff like that, because I have a thing for overdrives. It's like they all sound different. So
an overdrive pedal is kind of your favorite kind of pedal, would you say? Or
yeah, those are the ones that I have the most of. Just because driving an amp with them, that's what I use them for. I use them to drive an amp. That's because I like that sound, you know, and I like the different textures and tones you can get out of different overdrive pedals because they're all different. They I'm more than just a tube screamer guy. So like my favorite one is the Zodic BB mid boost version, which is a tube screamer-ish circuit, but it has bass and treble, so I can like tune it a little bit more. That's the one that I use most.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than my vintage style treble booster that I built 30 years ago, if you want to see any of them, just ask.
So with all the repair work you do on pedals, right? I mean, do you have like a favorite brand to work on and a least favorite brand to work on?
Sure. And there's also ones that I work on the most, which tends to be DOD pedals because the caps in them go bad. So I fix more of those than just about anything because I'm able to do it fairly cheap. I love old Electro Harmonics. I don't really like their new stuff that much. I really love their old pedals. I have quite a few of them. They're kind of there, like right behind my shoulder. The ones I like to work on the most are MXR pedals because they're just easy to work on. They're designed by someone who knows that things are going to break and they need to be repaired, like fender amps, so they're quick to diagnose and quick to fix. And ones that I like working on the least, a lot of one-off things like ADA flangers and stuff, because just the way Rocktron pedals, I hate working on those. In fact, I won't even work on them. Just because the way that they're constructed, you can't take them apart without being destructive. So
is it because of where they're in the board, or?
Well, the ones in the aluminum cases, the boards slide in the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the pots are in the slotted part on the top where they slide in. Okay, well, they put the board in and then they glue the control plate with epoxy over the top of the pots, and you cannot get it off. There is not, I've tried heat, I've tried chemicals. You can't get it off. You just have to slice it down the middle. So you have to be destructive in order to get the circuit board out. I hate that. I hate people who design things like that for one-way construction. I don't like that. So I won't work on those. Unless they're mine and I don't care. I have one of their purple haze pedals in it. That's old stuff. I love working on that because it's so easy. It's easy to diagnose. It's easy to repair as long as you can get the parts. It's just, yeah, I like that. I like working on electroharmonic stuff. A lot of people aren't very good at working on that because they'll destroy it because they don't know how to set their soldering iron temperature. And I've seen some real. I just fixed a couple of fender blenders and a Dan Armstrong blue clipper for a guy, and I recapped Univox Rotosphere, which is like a fancy rotary speaker simulator. It's a phaser, but it sounds pretty good. It sounds like a rotary speaker, like not as good as a Leslie or one of the modern, like the Vent or anything, but it sounds pretty good,
Is there a pedal that you went to go work on, you open it up and you're really surprised by what you found on the inside?
Oh yeah, boutique stuff. Oh, yet another tube screamer. Yeah, it's YATS. It's a little joke in the DIY community. Everybody's got a tube screamer. Wampler makes fun of that too. It's a tube screamer circuit, because it is. Everybody, it's the secret Mojo Femuram. It's a tube screamer. It's not worth $600. I'm sorry, it's a freaking tube screamer with 2 pots in it that change the treble response. Whoop-de-doo. People get me with the Mojo parts thing, and it's just like, no, it sometimes. It depends. I'll pull a Dave Friedman. It depends. Most old stuff sounds good because the parts have drifted all over whack, and it's not what it says on the schematic anymore, and you just happen to like how it sounds.
Right.
So yeah, that's the Mojo is component drift. But that's kind of fun too. That was one of the reasons I enjoyed collecting pedals, because I could buy 3 big muffs and none of them sounded like the other one. So that's why people have a lot of vintage pedals, like you see people with 6 big muffs, because they all sound different.
Yeah, they'll have a different flavor to them.
Yeah, they all have different something, so it sounds different.
It's kind of like the same thing like vintage pickups, right? They all sound different. They're all wound a little bit differently. They all sound a little bit different from each other. And
they're all constructed different.
Of that, and
they just that's the thing with my Kramer. It's like I have an old DDL in it, a Duncan distortion that was Lydia on, and it just sounds different than the new ones that I have. It's darker. It doesn't have that ice picky stabbiness that modern distortions have, and I don't know why. It's just that pickup sounds really good in that guitar, and it has this really thick lower mid-range to it that the ones that I put in my other guitars don't have.
You're right.
Why? The hot rails sound the same as so I don't know.
It is just strange. Guitar Man 45 says, what? They don't have some guy waving skulls and bones over parts for Mojo?
Yeah, I post that on some of the Facebook forums, and it's like you want to buy some used tone, man. It's Voodoo Mojo tone, man. They're old caps out of a 1968 Fender blender. They're way out of spec and have super high dissipation, but man, they have that mojo.
They're gonna work for 2 more weeks, but
yeah, they're leaking, man. They're leaking the tone out, man.
Oh gosh. Dear, when you and I first talked about doing this interview, there was a question that I wanted to ask you that I almost completely forgot, because now we have 10 minutes left. And what is with the 1 meg pots?
What is with the 1 meg pots? Okay. I have 1 meg pots because I used to play live, and when you have a 20-foot cable, it doesn't matter if you have a buffer after it or not, you lose high end. So I combated that with 1 meg pots, and it worked. And plus it makes the pickups louder, and I play metal. So I want as much, and I had a JCM 800. So I wanted to slam the front end as hard as I could. And I just got used to that sound. So plus the way my Kramer is wired, I have a bunch of switches in it and stuff to split series parallel and phase, and kind of like Brian May has on his guitar, because I liked getting different tones again. And the 1 meg pot really allowed me to get a Telecaster-ish tone with the bridge pickup in parallel, because I like that sound. So yeah, that's part of the thing with 1 meg pots. And some people say, oh, they're brighter, and no, they're not. It's just, you're imagining things. It's just loud. You perceive it as brighter because it's louder. That's why it sounds brighter, because it's louder.
Well, Gear Junkie 35 seems to be agreeing with you. He says clarity, high-end clarity, touch sensitivity, more gain, and breakup at lower amp volumes. He loves 1 meg pots.
Yeah, it's just, I like the taper of them too better. And they don't interact with the tone control as much. So when the tone control is cranked, it has no effect at all. So I don't need a loadless tone pot, because it's not there when it's turned all the way up. It's like I can disconnect the cap in real time and can't hear any difference. If I roll down my volume pot a little bit and connect it, yeah, you can start to hear the bleed. So yeah, it's just, I say so too much anyway. That I found what works for me through a lot of experimentation, and that's because like my guitar has a 1 meg volume pot, and when you use a 1 meg volume pot, you have to change the tone control. You can't use a 500K. You have to use a 250K, or else the first half of the rotation does nothing. So, and then I have a bass control too, which is a bass roll off. Because sometimes I like that too, especially when using a fuzz pedal. Because if you plug a humbucker into a fuzz face, that doesn't usually work very well, because the pickup has a lot more low end, especially a Duncan distortion. So I just stuck that in there so I could roll the bass off, and that made it work. So it was just finding what worked. I grew up in the times of Eddie Van Halen, where I wanted to mod everything and make it mine, so it's what I did.
So did you go and rewire all your guitars like that?
No, I didn't rewire them all like that, but I always change the pots in them just because that's what I'm used to, and I generally don't like the cheap pots that they put in guitars most of the time. I always put CTS ones in there. I have a stash of old ones that don't die in 2 weeks like the new ones do. So, because I like the ones that have the brass shaft because they're smoother. So, yeah, I need to replace the ones in my Washburn actually because they're really tight. The ones that have the aluminum shaft, they're stiffer. I don't really like that much. I like my tone control or my volume control to be pinkyable pretty easy, like Eddie, but not that loose.
Right.
50, his, wow, that was just, yeah. I'm going to get a new pick guard for my Kramer that moves the volume pot like this far away from where it is. I actually don't, that's the one thing I hate about Strats. I do not like the volume pot there because I hit it when I'm picking. So, and it always makes it go down a little bit. And I'm constantly, you see guitar players do that live too. They're constantly.
Yeah, they're constantly filling with that knob because they're hitting it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they hit it. And yeah, it's very annoying. I don't like it there.
Well, folks, for those of you who don't know, Scott has a channel and he's got 16 videos up there. A lot of interesting stuff there. And for our conversation that we were having before the show, we're going to start seeing some new stuff up there, right?
I hope so. With the Axe.io that John gave me, bless his heart, I hope to be able to do some recording here really soon. Like I said, I found a piece of software yesterday that'll let me loop back without having to buy a $600 outboard piece of gear just to listen to it. It's very annoying. Yeah, and you said you were going to give me that camera mount so I can get a camera over the top of my bench. That'll make it a lot easier for me to do videos.
The only thing about that mount is you want it to be on something that is like secondary so that if you hit the table, it's not shaking your view.
Right.
But
my bench is a big, heavy bench, and if you hit it, it doesn't move. So
there you go. So that'll work for you. Well, so I put, and like I said, I put Scott's channel in the chat. So if you ever want to check him out over there, that's where his videos are at. Some pretty cool unboxing, lots of work with on the bench with different pedals, and so just a lot of fun over there. So go check it out, and hopefully we'll have some recordings coming soon.
Yeah, and if you need anything fixed, hit me up on FacePlace.
Yeah. Quinn says, I have 3 knobs on my Strat. I want to know what one of them does.
But is it the knob on the Strat that he knows what it does?
Oh, my. Oh, Eddie Face says, fun show. To both of us. Thank you, kind sir. Scott, this has been a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Certainly enjoy it. Everyone out there, I don't know if Laz is going to have a show next or not. I haven't been able to check, but I do know that the OU812 crew is going to have a great show later today, and I know that Ben Coombs is going to be on tonight. So, still plenty of great Father's Day guitar viewing on YouTube. So make sure you go ahead and check it out. And Scott, go ahead and stay with us here. Everybody, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.